Blake, what would you say was the most important performance of your life?
Pretending to be a sane, civilized person when I met my in-laws.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who tricked his in-laws for about 30 minutes into believing he was a normal guy. And I'm here with my boss, Toby Walters, who his in-laws love him because he is God's gift to humanity. That's the nicest intro I've ever given you.
I have so many things to backtrack and correct. First of all, pretending to be a sane, civilized person, isn't that your performance every single day?
Honestly, I think I dropped that a while ago.
I think so.
Somewhere around kindergarten.
I don't know anybody who would describe you as a sane, civilized person.
That's true. And I would be offended if they did. My number one goal in life is to not be boring.
And now my in-laws do love me, but that took some time. Like at first they were looking at me like, heads cocked, like, we want our daughter with this guy?
Well, let's be honest, Toby. That's one of the things that attracted me to you initially was like, oh, this guy can maybe teach me how to trick my in-laws like he did his.
Oh, that's true.
So.
Yes. Well, we have a long runway to go, Blake.
Well, if I could walk 1,000 miles or 500 miles, walking 500 more. So.
Yeah, that song is hard for you, isn't it?
Tell us something about oranges.
Oranges? Well, I was going back to the in-laws. There was a moment when I think my in-laws, like something clicked with them where they thought like, oh, this guy isn't like totally useless. And it was when my band was on the news.
You were on the news? Why were you on the news?
I was on the Fox Morning Show in Austin. We had a connection at the morning show. Like she booked the talent. And so she said, hey, and we were at the same church. So we were the worship band at that church. And so she said, hey, why don't you come on the morning show sometime, do a song or two, and we'll promote the band. And it was great. And I was thinking back to a moment earlier. So rewind like 10 years when I'm trying to be the next Switchfoot was kind of that moment in my life. And we were in San Diego, and our drummer got us a gig. And you always see this in like TV. It's like somebody in the band says, hey, we got a gig. And the rest of the band just like jumps up and down. Oh my gosh, we got a gig. This is what we've been working for. And so he said, I have this pastor who hosts this, he didn't call it a talent show, but that's straight up what it was. So he said like a community worship night. And he said there's usually several hundred people there, and they're going to pay us $300. So
back in those days, that was like $30,000.
This was like 2002. It's not that far along.
Oh yeah, sorry, 300,000.
There you go. So we hopped in the church van with all our gear and drove up to Orange County. And that's where all the rich people live. So we figured, like, this is great.
Well, and that's why I said, tell us a story about oranges.
That's right. So we get up there, and we get to this church, and we walk in, and looking around and thinking, like, okay, like, the people will show up eventually. Great. And so we set up all our gear, and then we met the pastor, and he was so excited to have us there. And he said, this is going to be amazing. Like, these nights are usually like, you just never know what's going to happen. Like the spirit moves and awesome things happen. So the night starts, and I kid you not, Blake, including us and my dear beloved fiance, because we weren't married yet, there were 12 people in that room.
Oh, wow.
And
did you save all 12 of them?
All 12 of them were performers or their fiance, which was my wife.
This is painful. This is so painful to envision.
So, it was straight up a talent show for just the performers. And so there were 12-year-old girls singing karaoke. There was 2 sisters that did a dance routine. Then the pastor himself got up and sang a Third Day song, not even to a musical track, but to the actual track with Mac Powell's voice. He simply sang along as his talent. And then we were the headliner, Blake.
Oh, wow. What a prestigious title here. This is so awkward. Like, my skin is crawling.
All of our skin was crawling. Like, we looked at our drummer like, we're going to kill you for this. So we play like 3 or 4 songs. And as we're packing up, the pastor and his wife come up, and they're just so appreciative and thankful. And, just doting on our talent. And then I'm thinking to myself, at least they promised to pay us $300 for this. At least we have that. So the pastor's wife reaches into her purse, pulls out her wallet, and hands me $10.
Oh my gosh.
$10.
Not even covering the gas it took to get over there.
No. And do you want to guess what we did with that $10?
Did you go to like Sonic?
We went to Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
That's all we could do in
Oh,
Orange
man.
County. I mean, how far does $10 go in Orange County?
Now, did you
Jack in the Box.
Did you go to Jack in the Box because when you went to Wendy's as a kid, you got robbed?
No, I think the band voted, and we're like, I think it was the 2 tacos for $1.99 or something. We're like, we're gonna get the most value out of Jack in the Box right now.
All right. Well, let's shake that off because now that is so painfully awkward, and
Maybe we can remove the sour taste of Orange County from our mouth.
Yeah, that's a Sour Patch Kid is sweeter. Okay, well, let's bring in someone who's much sweeter than this sour story. The production systems manager at Mariners Church, Evan Woertz. Did I get
Hello.
it? Did I get it? Did I get your
Yeah.
name right?
Yeah, you did.
Woertz.
Heck yeah. All right. Score 1 for
That's me.
Blake.
Were you at that gig, Evan, seeing as you live in Orange County?
No, I wasn't. I was enjoying the story though. That's pretty epic.
Now, Evan,
You have
would
to have some pretty epic failures too to go with your wins.
Evan, would you have left when you saw the state of it when you got there?
That's a good question. I mean, chalk up your losses, right, and move on. But at the same time, you powered through and you stuck with it. So my hat's off to you there.
Yeah, I think I definitely would have left. But all right, so let's see if Evan looks like such an honest guy.
He sure does.
I don't think he's got a lie in here.
Like his shirt has a collar and everything.
I don't think you and I have ever had one of those.
No.
All right.
No, I dressed up for you guys.
Oh,
so.
appreciate that.
The first and last time anyone will ever do that for us. Okay, let's go. Number 1, I play music as well as audio, video, and lighting.
Does he play audio, video, and lighting?
That would be cool.
Mhm.
Well, I've seen these, lighting cues. It looks like you're playing lighting.
That's true. You literally do. Like you have to hit them in rhythm sometimes.
I'm seriously.
Yeah,
it feels
it's
to
a
me
legit
like.
instrument. Okay.
Number 2, the last show I attended was the Acropolis. Acropolis?
I swear you're making this stuff up, Blake.
I'm
like
not. I'm genuinely not.
the Acropolis.
The Acropolis. See, I'm just not very cultured.
Now, Evan, don't reveal whether this is your lie or not, but we're talking about a location in Greece, right?
That's right.
Okay,
And I took Latin and still didn't get that.
that's Greek, buddy.
Well, they're very close. Okay, number 3. While on the road, I once worked in 3 states in 24 hours. This has got to be an East Coast gig.
Well, or like Southwest, because there's like 4 corners where Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona all meet.
Are there like big cities all in those
Like,
little
what
corners?
if there was a gig on the 4 corners?
That would be pretty
Yeah.
epic. Number 4, I once quit a tour because the bus was so bad.
I'd believe that.
He
These
does-
bus stories sound
yeah.
awful. Like you can't poop on the bus. I mean, seriously?
I would challenge that. Well, so I smuggled my way onto MXU's bus at the end of.
Did you poop on the MXU
well,
bus? Is this your moment? You're confessing.
Look, that would be a whole intro story, but it was in Chicago, and I really needed to pee. Didn't want to sit in the van for an hour, and then I saw you couldn't poop in it. It had a little like a thing in there, like a
thing?
had like a giant toilet cake, like circle. I don't know. I did poop in the bus. All right, number 5. I'm just kidding. Number 5. I started off in architecture and construction. I believe that 100%. He looks like the smart guy to do that. Number 6, in 15 years, I've never gone over an 15 years, I've never gone over an operating budget.
Oh, if that's true, then we need this guy here. Budgets are not my strength.
I
I'm
tried
like,
to hire him at the beginning of this before we hit record.
You want to spend money? Sure. Why not? Let's do it.
Okay, this is difficult. I feel like a lot. I believe all of these. I'm just gonna go. Well, no, I do believe he would quit the bus because it'd be so bad. I don't know, Tobes. What do you think?
I'm going to go with the he's never gone over an operating budget because to my mind, that's impossible.
I think you're probably right, although I don't want to pick the same answer. So I'm going to go with my second best, and I'm going to go, while on the road, I once worked in 3 states in 24 hours, because I bet it might actually be 4. All right, Evan, we're locking in.
Time for revelation.
Yep.
That's right.
It's the bus story.
Oh,
So and quick clarification: the bus story is true. It just didn't happen to me. That happened to a friend on a winter tour.
Sneaky little switcheroo here.
But you're right. I am honest.
So what
I kind of
happened
got you
to
there.
him?
He ended up on another bus, so it ended up being all right. But
What was so bad
yeah,
about the
I
bus?
saw that bus, and I don't blame him for threatening to leave.
Was it like the physical state of the bus
The smell.
or the activities going on the bus?
Yeah, no, it was like a movie, where they just made it, comically over the top awful, but it actually looked like that.
It was like Uncle
I think
Eddie's
they
bus.
actually had like a spray paint like logo on the side that they had like done themselves or something like that. It was pretty bad.
Wow, that is something. Tell us about the 3 states in 24 hours.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting situation. So we were doing a job in Minneapolis, right? And the job was really behind schedule to where 2-day trip, truck and trailer to get there, and basically had to cut the crew and go back home and come back in 2-3 weeks after they were ready for us. So we go to the airport in Minneapolis, nice airport if you haven't been, and so I get a call from my boss while in line to go through TSA, and he says, "Hey, can you go to Oklahoma like now?" I was like, "Well, no, because I got to get the crew back to Colorado." And so it ended up being 24 hours, and I was on 3 different jobs, going back to the shop and doing some prep work for something else, and then going to a Life Church build we were working on at the time. So yeah, 3 different job sites in 24 hours.
That sounds exhausting.
Well, I guess technically I've worked in multiple states in 24 hours when we've done these gear runs.
Do you call what you do work?
Well, maybe.
But yes, we've been in, our drivers will be in, I'm trying to think the most states.
That's a good question. It's got to be Charlie when he came from California.
Yeah, just going across of course, Texas takes a day all by itself.
How predictable, though.
I know.
Charlie winning every freaking award.
Yeah, Charlie's the best.
I can't get any.
But obviously, Evan can win these awards too, because the dude did it.
Well, tell us about the 15 awards you have in your closet for never going over an operating budget. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah,
Because
how is
jokes
that
aside,
possible?
yeah, that's
Right.
crazy.
Right. So that includes, I don't know, a dozen or so projects, and different teams. I worked at a large church before, Mariners, so did some projects there as well. The kind of caveat there is not necessarily having to how do I put it, manage the budget necessarily, but rather champion the budget and make sure that spending and purchasing happened within the budget that the team was allotted, if that sort of makes sense. And I think it's being resourceful. I think it's using what you have and using your people. Actually, this week, my team will be working on doing a integration in-house sort of. So yeah, I think that's how you use your resources the best, and try to be a good steward of the fiscal resources you have.
You say champion the budget. We champion our budget here, which is our budget is a champion. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm thinking step 1 to not going over budget is have a budget.
Yeah, that's true.
And number 2, have a good size budget. So Blake, when you ask me, can I do this marketing project? I'm like, sure, just don't spend any money.
Yeah, Toby will always be like, hey, print this. And then he'll be like, why'd you spend money on that? And I'm like, this is mixed
Exactly.
messaging. Okay.
Well, church gear is built on helping churches save money.
Well, sometimes you got to spend money to save money.
That's what my wife says when she comes home with
Don't
clothing.
get yourself in trouble here.
Oh, no, I'm always in trouble. It's cool. But the wife comes home and she's like, look how much I saved.
Yeah, I do remember as a young kid telling my parents, I was like, look, I got this toy at this store instead, so I saved $12. My dad was like, you spent $20. And I'm not going to say the explanative that came after. Okay, Evan, tell us a bit more about yourself, man. Did you choose the tech director life, or did the tech director life choose you? I mean, you definitely look like a tech director. You've got the glasses.
What does
you've got
that mean?
I was about to tell you. Like,
Okay.
That's a very specific stereotype.
He's got the dark colored shirt. He's got the glasses. He's got the dusting of facial hair without the full beard. His hair is darker colored. Like, he looks like a tech director.
He looks like the tech director that all
I'll
the
take
rest
that.
of the tech directors chose to communicate with the pastor because he's professional
Yes.
and well-spoken, and he looks very intelligent.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
We need we need somebody to choose as tribute to go talk to the pastors for us.
Do you typically get chosen as tribute?
No, actually. Yeah, I'm fortunate to have a role where I'm for the most part I'm able to work with the people that I like. And that's one of the things that I love about being at Mariners is there's really good people, really good kind of people there. And yeah, I'm fortunate to have a role where I'm more hands-on and I'm doing more practically, which is where I like to be. Hope that answers your question.
Toby, were you about to say something about I also get to work with the
Yeah.
people I like mostly
No,
until right now?
I was wanting to hear what it's like to work with people you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Evan, so tell us, like, what's your background? Like, how'd you get into the tech director life? How long have you been a tech director?
Right. So I was doing construction and architecture before. I went to a missions conference actually with some friends and came back and just kind of had this, maybe revelation is too strong of a word, but really felt that what I was doing wasn't what I was supposed to be doing and that I should be serving the church. So that's when I began kind of reaching out to some friends who kind of already were doing production at the church, and some people I already knew actually, and kind of got into that realm, if you will, and got an internship and changed my major, and I've ended up making a career of it.
Oh, wait, so you're doing construction and architecture while you're still in college?
Yeah, I was studying in college, for a couple of years before switching my major to digital media. So did some writing, production management, coursework, things like that.
How long have you been, or how many churches have you been a tech director at?
So I was with Bayside Church a little over 8 years, and I was kind of the systems and technical person there for a little while. Then I went to Summit Integrated for a couple of years and was a installation manager for them. And I've been at Mariners 5 years now, and I've had a couple of roles. So I started out more as the ministries and special events manager, if you will. Then kind of spent a couple of years focusing more on systems and shoring up our processes and how we do things. And actually at the moment, I'm the congregation production manager. So now my role has a lot more to do with our congregation locations, not at Irvine, but the other locations.
This is a lot of roles.
So
It is, yeah.
if we backtrack, you went from kind of working in the church as a production director, tech director, then you went to an integrator, and now you're back to the church. Can you talk a little bit about some of the just, like there are pros and cons to each one. Like what are some of the, things you experienced that you really enjoyed about being in an integrator versus being at a church? Because I know we have a lot of friends and tech directors that leave a church and go to an integrator, and we hear less about people leaving an integrator and going back to the church. So we're just curious about the difference.
Yeah, I suppose that is kind of unique. And I've noticed the trend as well. People going to work for integrators and use their talents there and still support the church, but in a little bit more of a role where they've taken a step back from being directly involved in the day-to-day or the process of what goes into doing church every weekend. I really appreciated the kind of streamlined efficiency, if you will, of working for an integrator. The company exists to do really good installs, right? And provide good product and provide good service. And that's kind of it. I mean, sure, it's a gross oversimplification, but that helps a lot of decisions. That helps a lot of choices. Is this in line with what we're doing and what we're trying to do here. The nuance of doing church is that it's so many things, and you're spread. Hate to say spread so thin, because I think that suggests a pace rather than a kind of work, if that sort of makes sense. I think if you're going to do church production, you have to know how to do a lot of different things. And there's a lot of different capacities in which you have to manage what needs to happen and what you can do to help, right? So I do miss having a lot more clarity about what the team is doing and how we do things. And so I think that's one of the advantages of working for a company, working for a production house, working for an integrator. But I have to say, I missed the church. I missed the challenge of kind of figuring things out in a shorter period of time. Every weekend we do a weekend, right? So we know what our schedule's going to be in that sense, and we know kind of the frequency and the regularity that we need to be able to provide. And so that's a very challenging challenge, but it is kind of a fun challenge for those of us who do it and enjoy it.
I was going to say, a lot of people leave to get out of that cycle. I won't say who, but I've heard people talk about how it can feel like a vicious cycle. So that's interesting and great and encouraging to hear someone out there was like, no, I miss that pace. And I'm sure it was two different worlds, going from every week, got to make it crappin', as Caleb Lefke would say, to, well, now, we've got these big projects, you can kind of plot and plan, and sometimes you can lose a lot of momentum in that amount of planning.
That's right.
And I think there's just a different type of chaos to either one. It sounds like it's kind of like an integrator is more like organized chaos. Like I might be in 3 states in 24 hours, but at least there's a plan. Whereas at church, it's more like fun chaos. You never know what the pastor might come up with all of a sudden, like, okay, team, we got to band together. We got to figure out how to make this happen.
Yeah,
but it's going to be a lot of fun.
We got to band together and make this talent show because these 12 people are going to be here, darn it.
But we only have to pay them $10.
Did the 12-year-old girls get paid the same rate as you, Toby? Did they get $10?
I don't know. I wonder if they got paid the rest of the $300.
Oh my gosh. They paid based upon merit.
100%. We were the worst ones. I mean, come on.
Well, so Evan, how do you still use your integrator skills to this day, like at such a large church? Do you find moments where you feel like, oh man, I'm still using these, or is it like, nah, I mean, it's just not the same?
Yeah, for the most part, totally applies. Totally translates. Again, in my role as the systems manager, which I still do for the most part, having a systems background is very, very helpful. The kind of biggest technical challenge when I went to Mariners was that there's a really great, really nice system that nobody really knew how to use. So I, being the kind of systems guy, having a systems background, was able to kind of dig in and make some things work better and kind of help everybody, be more successful technically and with the system. But it's a process. It's a really long process, incremental improvements, one piece at a time. And the other thing that I really learned from being on the church side instead of on the integration side is the people component of it. Okay. Because again, doing integration work is more focused and streamlined, if you will. And so it was a lot easier to give instruction and direction to people on my crew. In the church world, there's a little bit more nuance because we're working with contractors, we're working with part-time, we're working with high school volunteers, we're working with a lot of different people. And so there's a lot more complexity to kind of training those technical things.
So if you had a church tech director reach out and was like, hey, Evan, heard you on the podcast, I'm thinking about leaving to go work at an integrator, what would you say to them, the pros and the good and the bad of that move,
right? As
someone who's done it and then come back.
Right. I think I would ask some qualifying questions about why are you thinking about the move? Is this like a family and life phase sort of move, or are you just totally exhausted and overwhelmed? I think there's a number of good reasons for making a change, and I don't think anybody necessarily should or shouldn't make a change. I think it's more about like what is it that you want to grow in? Is this something where you're going to learn more about God's church and the ministry and what you can do to help and serve others? Or is this, you just want out? Because, I think it's kind of like the talent show story. It's like, what's your motivation to stay? What does it say about you? What does it say about your character? Because hopefully those doing church production really are called and really do, I think feel God's calling to do it. And it really is something where you can't do it at all, I don't think, if you're not called to, and if you're not equipped beyond just knowledge base and just leadership skills, although you need those things for sure. And so I think that's why I have to do a little soul searching. I don't think it's quite as easy as I'd like a pay raise, or I'd like a different team to work with, or I'm just tired doing the weekend grind, and so I want a more stable job. That's great. Those are good reasons. But yeah, I think check with your heart first, because if it really is something that you're called to do, I hope that God gives the grace and patience you need to get through a tough time. I would hate for people to leave the church and go get, hate to say, like a normal job, just because it's hard. Because I think it can be really rewarding too. I think it can be even more rewarding in some ways. So yeah, it's a tough call. There's not one answer, and I think it really depends on the person and where they're at, and what it is that they'd like to get out of their work.
We've talked a lot with different guests about calling, and I love that you mentioned that. Like, being in production at a church is a calling, and if you don't have that calling, you're going to be frustrated. But I think also that techs tend to burn out just based on workload, and then they think the grass is greener on the other side. And we know Summit. We know Nick from Summit, and like the level of
Is that the guy with the great beard?
Yeah,
good guy.
The really good-looking guy with the great beard.
I was gonna say that's what we call him at headquarters. We go.
I'm like, I want to be Nick when I grow up.
Same.
So
Right.
we know the level of expectation and excellence at Summit is super high. So I assume you come from a mega church and then you go to Summit, and you're like, whoa, I still have a heavy workload. It's, the grass isn't greener. The grass is just different. So, considering that calling is very important before just making a knee-jerk reaction to think like, oh, well, this will be easier or better for my family.
That's true. The grass is not greener. The grass is different. And I would add to that, the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. And so both gigs are good gigs. Ask yourself which is the one that you're going to enjoy investing in.
Well, and we've talked a lot about calling. It's kind of become a motif. What is there? And this is kind of a out of left field question, but I'm just going with where we're at right now. Is there any advice you would give people on trying to identify if they have a calling to still be in ministry? Like, how did you get to that place where you were like, yeah, that this is a calling on my life. I've left for a time, and I'm gonna take what I learned and go back. Because I think if I'm a tech director right now in a an on ramp to burnout, that's probably the biggest question I could ask myself. But how do I even know if I have a calling to be in ministry?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see ministry a little bit like, sometimes I try to think of it like, okay, let me take a step back and try to have a little bit of objectivity about it. Like, we always see ourselves in a situation and go, okay, so how do I relate to what is going on? And so I sort of try to see that the church is a lot bigger than me. Ministry is a lot bigger than me. And it doesn't just take production to do church. It takes a lot of other people with a lot of other skill sets. And so in that sense, I try to see the whole picture as much as possible. And I think that that's a good perspective from which to answer the question, well, how do you come across a calling? Or what if you do or don't have the calling? Because I've seen some people do really important things for ministry for a season, maybe 2-3 years. They do sound and production and help out and, push cases or whatever, and then do something else afterwards. There's something else that's not production at all. And I think that's fine. I think that God calls people maybe for a season, and maybe some other people for a whole career. So yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly how the Lord works in that way, but yeah, I think don't write it off. I think like you really know, like if you're called to do the church, you just know. You just know if your calling is to make a career serving the church. And I feel fortunate that I was able to kind of leave for a couple of years and come back. And the other thing that was really great for me about working with Summit is they work with churches exclusively. So in that sense, I still felt like I was serving the church and kind of helping inform some other churches beyond just the one church that I was working at. So there's still kind of a sense of calling and ministry for me, even in that.
I love what he said, the grass is greener where you water it. And I'm like, oh man, that makes so much sense. And burnout comes and it's like, are we watering our grass? And that looks like, are you having hard conversations with your pastor? Are you taking time to rest? Do you need a sabbatical? Would 2 months of just rest fix the problem?
It would, Toby. Give me 2 months off.
Blake, you already have every day off.
Okay.
So speaking of the grass is greener, I think the grass is legitimately greener at Mariners Church. I've been there a couple times, and that is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Talk to me about is there a sort of a stressful level of expectation around there, especially as you're like the systems guy and doing projects? Like what's the level of excellence around there? Just looking at how beautiful that place is.
And as a former integrator, they're probably like, well, Evan knows, so I'm sure there's a ton of pressure for you.
Yeah. The funny thing is that pressure in particular isn't quite there. I don't feel like a lot of people are pointing fingers at me or something like that. So that's fortunate. Again, good people, and I think we now have some good processes in place for how we do projects and how we work with integrators and do projects ourselves, and what things we manage and what things we ask for help with. And that's actually a really, really important part of the answer is make sure you have good help and you know who to call, and don't try to go it alone. And that actually relates to the ministry and burnout thing too, is, make sure that you're allowing other people to step up and step in and be a part, and you're not trying to be a hero, because you might get burned out if you try to do it like that. Mariners is beautiful. It's a beautiful campus. Everybody notices and comments on it. It's pretty wonderful there. So yeah, it makes it hard to get too stressed, I guess. It's kind of a good environment to be in. Yeah, there's a lot to manage. There really is a lot to manage. There's something like 10 buildings on campus, and I think all but 1 or 2 of them have some sort of audio, video presentation system, classroom or small venue or something. So yeah, that's a lot of systems to manage and maintain. And, again, glad I have a systems and integration background to draw from in order to keep things how they're supposed to be.
Is your bar for when you're going to bring in an integrator higher than the average church tech because you've been an integrator? So like, I would assume, and probably wrong, but I would assume there's a couple of projects where you're like, I don't need an integrator for this. I am an integrator.
Yeah, and that's something I've learned to try to not do.
Really?
I know that about myself. Yeah, I know that about myself, that I do want to be the hero some days, but I have learned that I'm not the hero. So I can do a lot more good for the church by training volunteers how to do things, asking for help. You really need to ask for help, and I have learned that about myself, is that I need to ask for help. and choose to involve other people in what I'm doing, because that's how they're going to learn. That's how I'm going to not feel stressed out about how much there is to do. And so I think managing that bar, you said, like, what's the bar? What's the level of quality and excellence? I think you always have to manage that. Another thing I was thinking about that question is, Mariners is very blessed. We're very fortunate. We have a lot of resources and good people. Here's a secret, though. Everything happens at scale. So we still place box sales of, like, 2 video converters, right? And then we also do really big integrations with integrators as well. So I think there's this myth that if you're a little church, then you just kind of have to call up some volunteers and go, install the projector yourself or something like that. But if you were a big church, then you'd have a lot of resources. Well, sometimes projects go like that. Sometimes there's good resources behind a project, and sometimes we have to do things ourselves as well. So it's a mix of all of those avenues, if that makes sense.
No, totally.
We don't only work with integrators. We do a lot of things in house, and we try to do things with the staff we have already as much as possible, because we want to be good stewards of our time and our money. So that's been good for me to see, actually, that's happening in a good way. And I think there's always room for improvement, for making more opportunities for your volunteers, more opportunities for your team to grow and develop. That's something I'd like to see a lot more of in a lot of churches, on a lot of teams, is focusing more on the people, not the problems.
Okay, you said being good stewards of our resources and money. So at Church Gear, I mean, that's basically our mission, is helping churches be good stewards of their resources and money. So one thing we do to help, and you and I, Evan, talking about how beautiful Mariners is, you and I were sitting on a delightful July day outside while the fountains, and I feel like, there were rays from heaven. It's like heaven on earth. It's so gorgeous.
I was going to say, we almost lost Toby that day to Mariners.
Yes.
He was like, do y'all need anyone?
So we're talking about what, Church Gear comes and partners with churches by buying their used production gear, but we can't buy everything. It's just, some stuff is just, we have too much of it, or it's not something that we're able to resell and repurpose to other churches. You had an awesome sort of life hack that you do with all the gear that Church Gear wouldn't be able to buy. What is it that you guys do with that gear? Who do you call?
Yeah, that was one of those fun little projects that I got when I started. Is we set out to do a lot of integrations. So again, Mariners is a big church, big influence, and when I got there's a lot of old, outdated, broken equipment, believe it or not. So I've been in a kind of strategic place the last couple of years to help manage and oversee some of the installations and integrations that we've done. Renovated the whole kids building, renovated all of the classrooms, made them super easy to use. Just this year did the youth building as well. So there's been a lot of projects going on. There's been a lot of upgrades which have been good and timely and everything. And a ton of gear. We've moved a lot of gear. I would say go local, and that's something that's been good for us. There's a recycling center in Santa Ana, pretty close, where whenever we pull wire, whenever we have scrap metals and stuff, we're able to get a couple bucks back from that to put we spend it all on gaff tape, I'll be honest, but gaff tape and batteries and the usual consumables. But there's another company that does kind of e-waste and electronics recycling. And we actually kind of worked out a deal with them to where they were able to buy back some of the equipment, because, when you do classrooms and kids' rooms and stuff, it's order of magnitude, there's like 20 speakers, and 10 audio consoles. And so a lot of that gear was still working. It just wasn't the gear that we needed to resource our people and our events with. So yeah, they were able to buy it back from us.
Yeah, I want to encourage churches, don't let all the old equipment die a slow death in churches literally call it the graveyard where all the gear goes to die. Like,
Yeah, we have a graveyard too.
yeah. Church gear, we want to come alongside and partner with churches and help buy as much as possible. But also, there are e-waste companies that will come pick it up from you, give you a couple bucks, and like clear out your storage space. It's a total win.
I don't
That's
love,
right.
Toby, in this analogy, how we're grave robbers. If like the gear is in a graveyard and then we come and buy the gear, like
We give gear new life. That's our tagline.
so we're grave robbers and then we're necromancers. We bewitch it back to okay.
We resurrect it to use.
So now we're claiming to be Jesus. This is going off the rails. Okay, Evan. So you've got all these years as a church tech, as an integrator, as just an overall strikingly smart looking guy. So you got a lot of pressure here on your
Thank
tech
you.
on your tech takeaway. This is just something, a piece of advice should give any church tech, big or small. They make their Sunday service better. It could be philosophical, could be technical. It's honestly my favorite when it's like that particular person's piece of random weird advice, because like techs love their checklist. They got the normal stuff. What's like something kind of out there
That's
that
right.
you're like, man, I just stumbled upon this thing and it works.
Focus on people, not problems.
What if there are problems with the people?
Then all the more reason. And that's unfortunately really common is that tech directors and church production teams have some caustic people, some people who are maybe they want to serve, but they don't have the maturity yet to do it well. And that's tough. That's really, really tough. But yeah, I don't think any sort of equipment or material resource is going to help you overcome a team and culture problem if that's what you have. And even if you have good people and even if you have good resources, good equipment, technical resources, I think at the end of the day, you're investing in people. Hopefully you're investing in people, and hopefully I would encourage any church production people listening, like just remember that the people that you interact with, that's what's gonna make a difference. That's the difference that you're making is in people, because systems can come and go. Technology comes and goes, and everybody has an opinion about that too. But the people that you rub shoulders with, so to speak, or run into, the people that you have influence over, even the volunteer who just serves once a month or whatever, that's still somebody that you're able to make their life a little better and a little more meaningful and give them something to contribute and to serve the church with. And I think that's really what we're doing here.
And if I was going to go a little deeper there, like I think that's right. That's a really good directive. What would then be the tip to carry that out? That you would say, I mean, is that taking your volunteer out for coffee? Is that being understanding of mistakes? Is there a breakthrough moment or move that you have found where you're like, this is how I really either handle a bad people issue or I connect with people and really build that culture?
Yeah,
that's
a really
a tough
good
one.
question. It is tough because it's a really good question, and I think a couple of things about that. I think probably what started me or motivated me towards that path of aspiring to be a leader or aspiring to be somebody who's able to actually benefit people is that I've had really good people in my life. There's been people who are really knowledgeable, really talented, but also took time to like care for me and say, hey, I see you're interested in this other kind of thing. What would that look like? Like, help me help you kind of pursue that interest that you have. And so I think that's probably like my why, my motivation is that other people have invested in me. And so I feel, the need to invest in others. And I'm learning too that it's whoever happens to be here now. Who are the people that God has put in your path? Those are the ones that you have an opportunity to influence and to add some value to them.
I like that a lot. Focus on who's there, not who you wish was there. Toby's, still getting over that with me. But
Exactly.
What?
Yep, having to just deal with who he's got. Well, Evan, thanks, man, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been great.
Oh, wait, plugs. You have anything to plug? Do you want people to reach out to you on Instagram, or you like, hey, I'm good, or you want to point them any directions?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't post as much as I used to, but yeah, there's some kind of fun photos on there, previous jobs, and funny things that happen on jobs.
Ooh, okay. Well, great. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.
Blake, my literal next door neighbors used to go to Mariners Church.
Well, Toby, you've got like 12 neighbors, but I feel like they've got
I live in a neighborhood.
Well, okay.
So they are like legit famous. Like they literally sat front row at Elton John because Gucci gave them those tickets.
Is that because they just bought a bunch of Gucci?
No, because they're famous. They're the most wonderful people. Like they're so great. But you know the most baller thing they do?
Oh, they buy gear from churchgear.com.
Obviously.
But even smarter than that, because the rich and powerful and famous and genius people, they go even deeper. And that level is using the code podcast for 11% off.
Yeah, I think Gucci does it too.
Oh, Gucci was the first person that used the podcast code. So, and also it helps me keep my job. If we don't have enough people use this code, I'll be fired. So please go over there and use code podcast. All right, we're done.